Thank you, Dave Rubin, for the ones who you don't know who he is. He's an American political commentator, YouTube personality, and the host of the talk show, The Rubin Report, a show that I follow, I have to tell you. And he's the author of the book, No quemes este libro. So it's like, don't burn this book. And that is recently translated in Spanish, so you have it in your stores. How are you doing, Dave? Thanks for this interview.
I'm great, Sergio. It's good to be with you. I love the set over there. I want to see what figures you've got up there. I can't quite make them all out from my little like screen here.
Horror movies, figures that I like. This is an author that is a personal thing of mine. This
Very
is a
nice.
Jordan Peterson book that I think that you know.
Yeah, I've got that one right over there.
Yes. Yeah, we have the same similar setup. This is like, I have several things that have connection with my channel and everything that I do here. So
yeah, great. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, yours is more like classy than mine, I think. Mine is more like for the young generation, I believe.
Don't worry, I've got some Star Wars and Transformers toys just out of the view of the camera over there.
Okay, that's cool. So the first thing I'm gonna ask you is a very simple question. It's like, why did you write this book, and how do you think it can help people? Because I think, like, for me, I was on the left too, like many years ago, and then I have like this ideological trip until the place that I'm right now, and I think like you have like a similar path to me, so I feel very connected with this book. But how do you think it can help other people?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm glad to hear that you know, you were sort of on the left and you're going through your own sort of transition as well, because I think a lot of people are going through that right now. And I think one of the reasons that people like me, that they watch the show, that they listen to what I talk about, is because I was very honest for the last 5 years about my political transition. I was a lefty, I was a progressive, I worked for the Young Turks Network. It's a far left YouTube channel. I was a Bernie supporter. I mean, you can find videos of me talking about all of these progressive ideals. And then as I woke up about 5 years ago and I started saying, hey, we lefties, we're not acting liberally, we're attacking everybody, we're not using logic and reason, we're labeling everyone that disagrees with us a bigot and a racist and a homophobe and all of these things. But I was saying it at first as a lefty. And a lot of people were noticing that same thing, because now everyone sees it. 5 years later, everyone sees sort of all over the world clearly how sort of crazy the left has gone. So I think what happened was I was just very honest about what I was thinking and the way I saw the political landscape changing. And then what happened, the reason I wrote the book, was I was on tour with Jordan Peterson a couple of years ago, and my guys told me right before I sat down that you saw one of the shows in Oxford. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah, and it was
that was the first time I saw you in person.
Yeah, that was one of the most magical shows that we did, because Oxford is just such an incredible place, and the history there and the love of knowledge and the love of reason and history. It's just so absolutely wonderful. But anyway, I was on tour with Jordan Peterson, and my agent kept calling me saying, you know, we're getting a lot of people asking if you're going to write a book, because obviously, you know, being on tour with Jordan, there was a lot of new eyeballs on me and everything else. And then I started thinking, you know, maybe it's time to really lay out not only my political evolution, but really what I believe. Maybe it's time to put that really into not just talking on YouTube all day, but really into print on paper. And that's exactly what I did. And I think that, I mean, clearly the reaction has been great. So I think a lot of people are still waking up to these things. So, you know, where you may have been 3 years ago, let's say, or where I was, say, 5 years ago, a lot of people are going through it right now, and they need a little bit of that roadmap to figure out what a good future could look like. Yeah.
I personally share most of the opinions that you express in this book. Even when you talk about, this is what I think about abortion, about that, I was like, well, my opinions are really, really similar to what Dave has here. And for me,
and Sergio, even if they weren't, it would be okay, and I'd still talk to you. That's the point. That's what a free
right now.
Right. That's what free people have to understand. You know, if you said to me, Dave, you know, actually, I read the book and I got 10 things here that I disagree with you about. It's like, hey, we could talk those things out. That would be just fine as long as we're being respectful to each other.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it seems like he's designed in a way to give like that last push for those who are in the edge of the political closet yet, they are afraid of coming out and everything.
Yeah.
In your case, you say like you came out twice. Like first one you came out as a gay person, and second one you came out as a non-leftist person. And I'm gonna ask you, which one was hardest for you? Of course they were different, but which one you think it was hardest for you, and for which one did you receive more hate?
Yeah, well, it's ironic, but coming out as a non-lefty. So, you know, I'm defending classical liberalism in the book. Mm-hmm. In many ways, from an American context, that really makes you a conservative at this point, because I want to conserve the ideals of America. But coming out as a non-lefty was way harder than coming out as gay. Now, first off, I just turned 45 last week. So I was born in 76. I grew up in a time where nobody talked about gay marriage. There were no good role models for gay people, anything like that. I didn't even really see a future for myself. And most of my 20s, I didn't come out really to friends or family into my late 20s. That's very, very late, especially when you compare that to now when, kids are 15 years old and, talking about these things and all of that. And I definitely did, I would say, a lot of damage to myself, but it was sort of like an internal struggle that once I realized who I was, then the world was actually quite loving to me and quite good, and friends and family and all of that stuff. So I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's more of an internal struggle. What's interesting about coming out of the political closet is the extraordinary amount of hate I got from the people who will tell you that they're the tolerant ones. They're the good guys, right? They love everybody. They love diverse ideas and diverse people and inclusion and tolerance and all these things. And it was unbelievably shocking to me. And in a weird way, even now in 2021, it's still kind of shocking to me how actually hateful these people are. While I have found that people on the right, conservatives, libertarians, independents, just anyone that's not woke, basically, I find them to be fantastic. I go to evangelical colleges and I speak, and they have obviously some political differences with me and theological, religious differences with me. And they applaud and they're happy to be there and they want to take selfies. So the problem with coming out of the political closet is you get mobbed on Twitter. You get family members telling you you're a racist and a bigot, all of these knee-jerk reaction things. And that's why a lot of people stay in the closet. But really, that was why I wrote the book, because I wanted to show people, if you are brave enough to do it, it will be better on the other side. That really is the truth, because otherwise your choice, if you think about it this way, your choice is, okay, stay closeted. Don't tell anyone what you really believe. Have friends that don't know who you really are. Your family members won't know what you really think. And you can live life like that. And do you think when you're 90, you're going to look back and go, man, I probably made a mistake? Of course, that's what you're going to think. Versus saying, this is who I am. This is what I believe. Now, you're going to lose friends. You're going to have people say mean things to you. But I guarantee you will find better, more healthy relationships. And you will be doing the most human thing we can do. I mean, humans can think. That's what separates us from the animals. And if you choose to not think because you think it's the easy way out, you're just giving yourself a slow poisoning, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. In the there's a chapter where you describe like the 3 incidents like have like this strong impact in you that made you your political change. Sorry for my rusty English. I live in Canada.
My political cambio.
Political cambio, yes. You say it was like the David Webb, who was like a friend of yours. He was a black person. And then it was like the Ben Affleck incident in Bill Maher's show when he said like, this is racist, when they were talking about homophobia. And the third one, I think it was like the most impact for me, was with the incident of Charlie Hebdo, like the terrorist attacks, for the ones who doesn't know here. Terrorist attack were in France. I don't know, like 12 people died. And then like these media outlets like BuzzFeed or Huffington Post, they were not talking about the victims, about the fanatism that are behind like those kind of crimes. They were talking about like the impact that this can have on Muslim people, the impact that this is going to have like in Islamophobia. How was that? Like, why do you think a very important part of the left like the most dominant right now, has a lot that touch with reality of
it's such
culture.
It's a really important point. And by the way, that's connected to the other one of those three that I mentioned, the Ben Affleck one on Real Time with Bill Maher, because Sam Harris was talking about how you have to be able to separate ideas from people, meaning, of course, you could criticize the Republican Party platform, but that doesn't mean you should be bigoted towards all Republican people. You have to be able to criticize ideas without being bigoted towards people. You could criticize the Old Testament without being anti-Semitic towards Jews, or you could criticize the New Testament. You shouldn't hate all Christian people. This is a very obvious idea that the left seems completely unable to detangle. They've decided somehow that basically Islam is a brown person's religion, which, by the way, it's not. There are white Muslims, there are brown Jews. I mean, we could go through the litany of this. There are obviously brown Christian people. The idea that a skin color and a religion, these are different things. But they've somehow conflated the idea that Islam basically is the religion of brown people. And if you say anything about that, then you are somehow racist. Now, first off, on its face, that's nonsense. But related to Charlie Hebdo, for people that don't know, Charlie Hebdo was the #1 satirical magazine in France for decades. France has an incredible history of satire. Make fun of the prime ministers, make fun of the religious people, make fun of everything. That they were equal opportunity offenders. They weren't only making fun of these people, they were making fun of everybody. And by the way, that's a great pressure release in a society. If you can use humor to basically deflate the constant pressures that we all deal with and poke fun at things and think about things in a new way or in a different way, that's a beautiful thing. Well, they, in this case, had drawn this cover and did an article that included, the prophet of Islam, Muhammad, which according to Islam, they don't want you to draw, except these are satirical people that can draw whatever they want. A cartoonist can draw whatever they want, in my opinion. And I don't think a cartoonist or a satirist or a comedian or an artist should have to not do something based on what someone else's religious beliefs are. If you have your own religious beliefs, then draw something or don't draw something. That's up to you. But you don't get to impose your religious beliefs on other people. Well, ultimately, what happened was several jihadists broke into the offices. They killed, I think you said it was 12 people. Mm-hmm. Then there was basically a 48-hour shootout. They went to a kosher supermarket, killed some random Jewish people. And the reaction throughout the West, Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, all of our mainstream media, somehow was that this was if you talked about this, that you were being an Islamophobe. And this made no sense. There were dead people who did not deserve to die. Those were the people that deserved our sympathy. I didn't hear anyone mainstream saying that we should blame all Muslims for this. Of course you don't. You blame the people who did it. That's it. That's all you do. You blame the people who did it. And then we can discuss why they did it and how perhaps they got indoctrinated or something like that. But the sympathy was suddenly, let's not upset Muslim people, except there were literally dead bodies on the ground at the time and blood-soaked streets in Paris. And that was another one of the moments that woke me up, that you guys, you don't care about truth. You don't care about what is real or honest. You actually care about narrative more than that. You care that the stuff that you purport to be true is true no matter what. And usually it's not true.
Yeah. For me, I think it was like one thing that shocked me a lot. And it still shocked me every time I watch that video. It's like, probably you know it. It's like when these students of jails are like surrounded by this mob. They're saying publicly like this guy for some stupid thing about Halloween costume.
Yeah. Nick Christakis. That was at Yale University. Yeah,
it was at Yale University. At that point, I don't. How much is like a jail course? Is like $70,000 a year or something like that. It's absurd. Yeah. And at that point, I was like, okay, I am at the opposite side of where these people are. I don't know what are they doing or where they came from, but I don't want to get close anywhere near these people. So my question is, what is happening right now in universities in the United States, even in the Ivy colleges that are very expensive, and only the elite can go to these universities? What is happening? How the identitarian madness infiltrated every aspect of the culture until that point?
Well, very, very quickly, the specific incident that you're talking about that happened at Yale, it was a guy by the name of Nick Christakis, who I've had on the show several times, who was the dean of the school. His wife, who was a professor, basically wrote a piece to the students where she said, you know, you can wear whatever you want for Halloween, but, you can think about it to be somewhat respectful of other people, right? But of course, everyone knows you could wear whatever you want for Halloween. Now, if someone doesn't like it, you're allowed to say to somebody, hey, I don't like your costume. You're not allowed to attack them. You're not allowed to try to get them fired or destroy their life or something like that. He then defended his wife, and then suddenly this mob of students starts attacking him, demanding that he be fired. There's a really crazy moment in one of the videos where this girl, who happens to be black, she's yelling at him, saying, who hired you? Who hired you? You should be fired. It turns out that she was on the committee that hired him in the first place. I mean, there's a series of things, but what's interesting about that moment is that Nick Christakis is a liberal. He's not a conservative. He's not a scary right-winger. He's a liberal. And this, in many ways, also shows the flaw of liberalism, which gets to your question. And I try to address this in the book, that all of the places of higher learning, especially the Ivy League schools, they're supposed to be bastions of liberalism, of tolerance, of open dialogue, and all of these things. And I think that what has happened is that the progressives saw the weakness of liberalism, and there is a weakness to liberalism. If you are so tolerant that you will be tolerant of everything, well, then the bad guys can come in. And I think the progressives and the Marxists, the woke crew, they saw that soft underbelly of liberalism. Liberalism has done wonderful things in the last 300 years, let's say, since the Enlightenment. Wonderful things for science and reason and logic, and it's helped us build Western civilizations that are more tolerant and more free. But that tolerance has a little nugget in it, and that nugget allows any bad idea to come in, and the liberals didn't see it coming. So a guy like Nick Christakis, who I think is a decent human being, it's like, well, you've been dean at Yale while this is happening. A guy like Brett Weinstein, you've been a professor at Evergreen, a lefty college, while this was all happening. Where what's interesting is this stuff isn't happening at conservative colleges. A little bit, but not the full way, because conservatives generally have a line. They say enough is enough. We believe in something, whether that something is God or some, we can discuss what that really is, whether that's a full belief in the Constitution, something like that. But that part of liberalism that just allows anything and everything in is also the weakness of liberalism. And I tried to address that in the book, by the way, which is why, as you know, later in the book, I talk about how liberalism cannot work in a purely secular way, that you actually have to have some level of belief behind it, which was certainly not something I would have said 5 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a thing that I want to ask you about, and it's like I've seen, like, you have like 2 interviews with Andy Ngo, who is like the writer of this book called Unmasked. He's a journalist, a Nazi journalist, and he wrote about this. And then very recently, I don't know if you know like this group called Mumford & Sons. Yeah. Winston Marshall was canceled, and and he was like, because he praised Andy Ngo about his book Unmasked, and everyone was like, oh my God, you're alt-right, you're fascist, you're Nazi, because Andy Ngo, I don't know who say that he's a Nazi, everything. And I remember one journalist in Spain, he wrote a piece about that, like saying like, look, this cancel culture madness, this guy from this group has to leave because everyone called him a fascist, because he talked about this journalist who is not a fascist. And a lot of people in Spain answer him, a very famous singer in Spain with millions of followers, answer him like, dude, you're like banalizing fascism because this journalist is totally a fascist, because look at this piece in the LA Times and look at this piece in the Rolling Stones. Here they say he's kind of like a fascist, so he's totally a fascist, and you're frivolizing it. And I was like, okay, so right now we live in a time where I can punch you in the face and then I call you a fascist, and then the debate is not going to be about if it's okay to punching someone in the face. The debate is going to be around if you're a Nazi or not, and if you deserve that punch or not. And I think it's crazy. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So first off, what's the musician in Spain's name that's going through this right now?
Ismael Serrano.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a little research on him, because good first off, good for him for just putting himself out there. I actually do believe that artists and musicians and creative people, if they know what they're talking about, it's great when they say things. You know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of actors usually who just don't know what they're talking about and say things. That's usually what comes out of Hollywood. But you know, if you have a platform and you really understand the issues, honestly, it's good, I think, when you say things. And unfortunately, he's going to deal with a lot of hate right now, as you're laying out.
No, Ismael Serrano was not the guy. Ismael Serrano was the guy who pointed at the journalist and said, like, you're a fascist or you're a free fascist. Yeah, he was not the guy who was like defending the person.
Okay, I got it. Okay,
the guy who was like bringing the LA Times and the Rolling Stones and saying, like, look at these pieces. Sorry.
Oh, I got you. So, okay, so partly what you're talking about there is how, you know, when someone then can just point to the LA Times and the LA Times says Andy Ngo is a mean guy and Rolling Stone says Andy Ngo is on the right. And it's like, Andy Ngo, I know Andy Ngo. First off, Andy Ngo is a gay Asian. Okay, now you could be a gay Asian and be a racist, but Andy Ngo is not a racist. This is the most soft-spoken, decent guy that you could ever possibly come across. He has spent the last couple of years doing actual journalism. He goes out into the field, onto the streets in these cities that are burning, and he sees and shows people what Antifa is doing. He's truly anti-fascist because Antifa are the fascists. They are using violence to promote their political agenda. That is what a fascist would do. Andy is not using violence to promote a political agenda. He's using words and videos to expose people doing violence. But this is one of the things that the Marxists and the new fascists do. They do the complete reverse. They accuse you of doing what they're doing, and then it's a very hard way to get out of that. Mm-hmm. So Andy Ngo has to spend all day basically defending himself from accusations that he's far right. Just the other day on The View, which is a popular, you know, morning show here in America, Joy Behar, who's a lefty, called Andy Ngo a far right-wing pundit. And it's like, well, what far right position does he hold? Is he anti-immigrant? Is he racist? They just say these things and they have very little value. But to your broader point, that's what they're doing. They're doing it intentionally because then instead of being able to focus on good work or to build things, you have to constantly be in a world where you're just defending yourself. And that's exhausting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to ask you about the part in the book that you say, like, you were very friends with Ben Shapiro. I know Ben Shapiro from, you know, like from videos and some lectures and things like that. And,
sure.
And it's a very nice part because you talk about, like, you, of course, you're pro-gay marriage. Actually, you're married with another man.
I even married a man. That's very pro-gay marriage.
It's very pro. It's all the gay marriage you can get. Like, you can.
Yeah.
And Ben Shapiro is against gay marriage.
Yeah.
And you say, like, okay, you know, we're adult people. He has like his opinions, and I have mine, and we can talk that out, and we can discuss it, and it's okay, and that's liberal classic, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, you know, whether your opinions or his opinions are going to be translated into the law, and you are going to be able to get married with the person that you want, or you're not going to be able to get married with the person that you want. So my question for you is how you conciliate this thing, how you conciliate like being a friend with someone that if you live in his ideal world, you will not be able to have the life that you have right now.
Yeah, well, first off, that's the beauty of America, that we don't live in anyone's ideal world, any specific person. We have a very specific, beautiful document, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that lay out what our rights are. So look, first off, you know, gay marriage until the last, say, 20 years throughout the entire world, the history of the world, the thousands of years of you know, human civilization. I mean, you can go further and further and further back. We never had gay marriage. We never had gay marriage. So am I to believe that every human that existed before 20 years ago was somehow you know, a homophobe or hated gay people or something else? I just don't believe that. You know, you could have been against gay marriage. You know, my grandparents, who are now long gone, I don't think they were for gay marriage, but that didn't mean they were homophobes. It just wasn't something of the time. So things do change. And generally in Western countries, especially, things change for the better. We had slavery. We don't have slavery. Women couldn't vote. Women can vote. Gay people couldn't get married. They can get married. So first off, I would say in a truly civil society, you have to be able to respect other people's beliefs. So it's a two-way street. And this is what a lot of lefties forget, that it's not just a one-way street, meaning you have to believe what I believe, but I'll pretend to not believe what I believe. You have to tolerate what I believe, but I'll just pretend to tolerate what you believe. So look, I think that two consenting adults should be able to enter any civil contract that anyone else can. So if two guys happen to be in love, or two women, or a man and a woman, I think it's all good. I personally would not be for forcing churches or temples to do gay marriage. If that's against their religious beliefs, I don't force them to do it, but I don't live under the laws of the church or the temple. I live under the laws of the United States, which is a secular state. So Ben is Orthodox Jewish, and like most Orthodox Jews, he has a religious belief that is not for gay marriage. Now, you're asking the right question, because the issue is, well, what if his beliefs ultimately legislate my life? Well, then we have a problem, but I am not governed. The United States is not governed by the Bible. It's governed by the Constitution. And that's a beautiful thing. Look, this is also where, the lefties will go crazy. Oh, Ben Shapiro is a homophobe. That makes Ben Shapiro a homophobe. First off, look, is Ben my best friend? Obviously not. Like, if he has some personal religious issue with gay marriage, then there's like a cap on where our friendship could be. But I know that we both roughly want to live in the same country. Ben doesn't want to kick me out of the country. I don't want to kick him out of the country. But this is the weird thing. This gets to something we talked about earlier. Look, there are thousands of mosques in the United States. 0 of them perform gay marriages. 0. There are many churches that perform gay marriages, Christian churches. There are many Jewish temples that perform gay marriages. But the left will never talk about that. And again, it's because they've decided that Islam is somehow related to brown people, so they get a pass. So they're allowed to have women and men separated. They're allowed not to like gay people, blah, blah, blah. They're allowed to do it. But if those Christians, especially those white Christians or those white Jews, do something, then they're a bunch of bigots. So to me, this is just sort of an agree to disagree argument. But if Ben was out there, promoting political candidates, let's say, that want to reverse gay marriage or something, then we would have a problem. But they're not. I mean, the Republican Party has completely moved on gay marriage. Donald Trump ran for gay, he was pro-gay marriage in 2016. He's the first-term president to ever do that. Even Barack Obama didn't do that. He was against gay marriage his first term.
Well, that's very interesting. I have like 2 last questions for you.
Sure.
If you allow me.
You got it.
One, it would be like, you interviewed Jeonmi Park. For those who doesn't know who she is, Jeonmi Park is a refugee from North Korea. The part that had more impact on me of her intervention is when she said that the indoctrinations in universities in the USA may be worse than the ones in North Korea, blaming the white straight dude, the white straight dude as the most evil thing in the planet and everything that they do in these universities. Honestly, how do you think all this is gonna end? You think that we will be able to overcome all this madness, or that we are kind of like doomed looking at the growing of other countries like Russia or China that look a little bit more focused than us? Because
yeah, well, first,
when universities like Yale or Harvard, I think we have a serious problem here.
We absolutely have a serious problem. I would say the problem that Spain and some of the Western European nations have is very much in line with the problem that the United States has. And unfortunately, the United States exports a lot of good stuff. We really do. We have exported freedom. We've exported creativity and movies and all of this stuff and culture. But with that comes some bad stuff. And now I see this bleeding into other countries as well. So first off, when Yeonmi said that line about how the indoctrination is worse here than North Korea, I literally got chills up my spine, because, when someone that has survived what she has survived gives you that warning, you better heed that warning. You better understand that warning and listen to that warning. So as for, whether I'm hopeful or not, I describe, I think I say it in the book, I'm a world weary optimist, meaning I'm an optimist because I believe that humans yearn for more freedom. I believe that humans want to be free, want to find purpose, want to do good, want to find meaning in this chaos. You went to the Jordan Peterson show, so you know what I'm talking about. I believe that. At the same time, I'm not just a blind optimist. There's a lot of bad stuff happening right now. There are forces that I would say are the time-tested worst ideas of collectivism, Marxism, communism that are on the march. They're on the march in your country. They're on the march in my country. They're on the march in Canada and in India and across every civil society, because bad people love collectivism. They love the ideas that you should throw away the individual and that we with quotes around it, know the best way for humans. And that's just simply not what I believe. So I'm hopeful, but I will say this, because you mentioned some of the Eastern European nations, they might have better defenses. Poland right now is looking pretty good. Hungary is looking pretty good. Not to say every little thing there is perfect and all that, but they are saying, hey, this is our country, this is our culture, this is our, these are our borders, and we're going to protect that. And, the rest of the Western nations are going to have to decide how they go about fighting this. It doesn't seem like we're doing a great job of it right now in the United States.
Yeah. So one last question, and it's like, I don't know if you realize that, but what happens in the United States arrives here like with 2-3 years delay. So that means that when you in the United States were talking about cultural appropriation, and like they were all getting mad about Katy Perry because he dressed like a geisha, and they were like, oh my God, this is so offensive for Japanese people and everything. I was looking at that like in a very, very entertained, like, oh my God, these people are so crazy talking about this. And then 2 years later, we have like kind of the same problem. And everyone in Spain were talking about cultural appropriation because one singer was dressing as people in the South. And they were like, yes, it's appropriation of our culture and everything. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe everything is getting here like with 2-3 years delay. So my question for you would be like, what is the craziest thing that the United States is into right now? Because I feel that we are gonna have to deal with it in a few years. So what is the most popular madness right now that you can tell me, so we can be ready?
I like this question because you want a warning. You can take this to Spain now and say, guys, let's build a wall right now. First off, just quickly on the cultural appropriation thing, most of what is called cultural appropriation is cultural appreciation. It's an appreciation of other people's foods, of other people's languages, of their hairstyles and all of these things. No white kid gets dreadlocks and does it in the name of racism. They're doing it as an appreciation to a certain culture. And by the way, you should be able to do whatever you want with your hair and eat whatever food you want and listen to whatever music you want and all of those things. You know what I mean? Nobody's listening to music because they hate that music. They're listening to that music because they like that music. So, okay, so that's one thing. What's the craziest thing that you should watch out for? Well, it's interesting. I would say you're right, because I've heard this from many people, this idea of like things used to take 2 to 3 years to translate. But the internet is speeding things up, right? Everything's just happening faster and faster. So I don't know that there's anything happening in the United States right now that's not quite happening in Spain yet, or just in any country around the world yet. But I would say, the best thing I could say is find the people around you that care about this stuff, that care about freedom, that care about your culture, that care about building decent societies, and figure out the best ways to inoculate yourself from this stuff. So I don't have like some magical thing that's happening right now that's going to be imported there. Mm-hmm. But if we are a little ahead of you, then that means you have a little more time to do the work to defend yourself. If that means getting your kids out of schools where they're being indoctrinated, or moving from one city to another to find more people who are in line with your beliefs, or finding other ways beyond YouTube to be on these tech platforms, whatever it might be, start doing that now, because if we are a little bit ahead of you, it's not getting better yet, because it's not better here yet.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dave Rubin. I have your book here in Spain. No quemes este libro, chicos. Lo podéis coger por Amazon, lo podéis en vuestra librería preferida. Está editado por Planeta, así que no vais a tener problema para encontrarlo. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much, Dave, for giving us this time. And I'm gonna continue looking at your channel, which is the Rubin Report. You have like 1.5 million subscribers, and I will tell everyone, please, to subscribe to your channel too. You can put the automatic translate, I believe. You don't.
I think they got it. I think they.
So
well, Sergio, I enjoyed talking to you, and I hope we were going to try to get a book tour for Don't Burn This Book last year, but obviously because of COVID, we didn't do it. So for my next book, which will come out in April of 2022, hopefully we'll get across the world again. I'd love to have some sangria with you in Spain.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. When Jordan Peterson came here, we have like an interview in person that for me was like a dream come true. It was after the Oxford thing, so that would be amazing if you can come to Spain and present the book here.
Great. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Dave. Very good luck. And
thank you.
Dave. Ciao.